Here's an exploration of extended puppy pose. This pose is often recommended if during a practice you don't want to do downward facing dog, where that requires a lot more weight coming into the hands and wrists and shoulders. I like extended puppy pose, and I think sometimes it's sort of a pose that's taken for granted that you just sort of shift back into. But I'd like to break down the subtle details of it for you here. So first of all, the pose that we're going to do today requires a couple blocks and maybe some cushioning under your knees if you like that. And we start in table position on all fours. Now, what I like about having the blocks under my hands is it gives a little bit of extra length to the arms, maybe takes some of the pressure off of the wrists, and just can kind of feel good. So basically, the full version of puppy pose from this position that I like to teach, knees are hip distance apart and the hands are about shoulder width apart. And basically, you're just shifting backward. And as you're shifting backwards, you're taking more weight into your legs and lower body, and you're being kind of just pausing here. Now, a lot of times you'll see the position where people are, if they're able to, they'll go back kind of far, like a child's pose, and just sort of stretch it out, which is great as well. This does change the shape of the spine a bit, where it becomes more of a rounded flex position, which is fine as well. What I like to play with is primarily having the movement driven between my hips here and my shoulders here. So maybe moving the blocks a little forward of the shoulders to start, and then going back into the movement where only moving as far as your spine doesn't move into a cat position. So really you're getting this nice benefit to moving your shoulders and your hips, and of course a little bit at the knees, and also the wrists. So I like to come in and out of this position, being mindful that I'm only moving in a range where my spine is staying fairly neutral here. And also you can do this with toes pointed, tops of the feet on the ground, or toes tucked as well, which can change the sensations in the feet. And then you can also pause here, which is great. And this is a bit of an active pose, so I haven't rested back on my feet. Then there's another option where you can take one of your blocks, bring it to turn it to a horizontal position or parallel to the top edge of the mat. In this case, I have this near my right side. I'm going to place my right forearm on the top of the block and then take my left palm on the block that's up towards the top edge of the mat. And here I can start with my shoulders more forward over my right elbow and then start to draw my hips backwards. This is sometimes called half puppy pose. So the left arm is straight, the right forearm is turned parallel to the top edge of the mat. And you can kind of just be here and breathe. Again, you've moved back in a range where your spine stayed fairly neutral from this first phase, moving to the back shifting phase. And then, of course, you can do the other arm. So you take your right block ahead on the top of the mat and turn the other block to be more of a horizontal position, parallel to the top edge of the mat, and place your left forearm. So I'm turning my arm this way. Left forearm on the block, right hand comes ahead onto the block at the top of the mat, and then from there you can shift back, and this is extended puppy pose with a single arm reach, and stay there for a few breaths. The last variation of many that you could really make here would be to take your blocks off to the right at a diagonal slightly. Now, from this position, what I like to do here is keep in mind that my pelvis is going to move straight back. And as my pelvis moves straight back, then I start to walk my hands and torso to the right. So I'm actually coming into a side bend here through my torso, placing hands on the blocks And then I'm going to stay with this idea of my pelvis moving straight back versus my pelvis veering off to the left. So in other words, I'm not going back at a diagonal, which you can do as well. But are you also able to consciously move straight back, keeping your hips kind of in line with the feet, walk your hands and torso to the right in a side bend, and then still continue to go straight back with your hips. That's a nice side body stretch. And of course, you can do that over to the left side as well. So first, taking your blocks to the left, your hips go straight back in this variation, and then your hands and your upper body curve to the left, placing the hands on the blocks there. And your hips are going straight back versus veering off to the right, which again is another way to do it, but we're exploring, can I maintain this neutral quality of my hips going straight back? And you can stay there and breathe and then come back up. And you've got a lot of different options there for extended puppy pose. So have fun exploring that. Enjoy.